Hello, and welcome to the Ultimate Strategy Podcast, your go-to podcast for everything strategy. Each week, we'll share a new episode covering a wide range of topics designed to help your business grow smarter by making strategy both approachable and actionable. I am Miriam and Laura, Strategy Execution Director at Cascade.
And I'm Laura Blackmore, Head of Strategy Execution. Hi and welcome. We are excited to have you with us today. This is just the beginning, so stay tuned for weekly episodes. Before we dive into today's topic, let me thank today's sponsor, Cascade. They are the #1 strategy execution platform that helps turn visions into reality by working as the strategic brain of your organization. Thousands of organizations around the world use Cascade to plan, execute, and track their strategies, all in one place, improving efficiency and speeding up decision-making. By successfully executing their strategies, our customers are making a huge difference, from deploying life-saving vaccines to engineering the fastest Formula One car. If you want to get your team moving towards your vision in one central platform, check us out at www.cascade.app. Now, let's get started. Miriam, I am so excited about today's topic. It's a good one. We're going to be talking about reverse engineering your strategy. So how do you get all fragmented plans in your business under one umbrella? I'm sure a lot of you resonate, and Miriam, I'd love to hear your experience in a moment. You know, plenty of organizations go through rapid growth or they experience lots of silos in their departments with people changes, different strategy changes throughout the year. And it's really difficult to actually get everybody oriented around one single vision, but also getting all of those plans aligned. You know, I've worked with organizations with over 20 business units spread across the globe. They're multifaceted. They have lots of different products that they're selling and manufacturing. And it's really, really hard to actually bring those together and get teams who traditionally work in silos into this one central sort of vision, if you like, and everything is cascading up and down in the organization seamlessly. So we're going to be talking about that today. You know, how do you identify the problem, or where do you start? What are the key practical tips or takeaways that you can start doing today? And how do you test and refine it? So Miriam, why don't you kick us off? How would you sort of identify this problem, or how do you even know whether you've got this problem?
Yeah, thank you, Laura. I'm also very excited to speak about this today because we see it a lot. And again, whether it's the different plans, or sometimes I see organizations also have some sort of a strategy, but then they also have a bunch of strategic initiatives on top of it, but it just doesn't truly connect, and it doesn't really flow together. So you're still having silos, and that's usually when we see organizations come to us as well and looking for help, for alignment and for more focus to bring everything under one umbrella. And the way I like to look at this problem, or to kind of understand how to get started in many ways, it requires, usually when you're in it, I find it's very hard to see sometimes. Some leaders do, some don't. Some I heard before as well, like, oh, we have a solid plan. Well, that's a solid plan for the marketing department. And the sales department tells you about their solid plan, but they're not properly connected to each other. And if you think about the goals of a marketing and a sales department specifically, they might have very different interests at heart. And if that is not connected and aligned, you can end up in a lot of duplicative and ineffective work. So unless there is somebody truly looking at it, or a CEO or CFO, or in a position that gives you a bit more of that helicopter view of the organization, to understand where to dive in and where to kind of start. The way I like to look at it is almost like thinking about, I have a small son, and the way he works usually with anything like a Lego or whatever, he's not actually putting it together. He's like first taking it all apart and essentially deconstructing it. And that's the way I like to look at it. It's like almost like deconstructing all of the little pieces that you have in your in the different plans and in the different departments, and laying them all out to understand what do you have, what are you working with, and then start in understanding like what is the common thread here, like where maybe the marketing teams talks about something around customer focus, and maybe the sales team has worded that in a slightly different way, but at the end of the day, it's also the customer focus. So finding a common thread and then aligning those words, that can really be the starting point after you've deconstructed what you have and laying out to understand where synergies are.
I like that. It
Go ahead,
actually
yeah.
it really reminded me of an activity I did with an organization recently where they were having this exact problem. Is like, oh, we have so much that we're working on, but we can't actually figure out what our focus should be. And you kind of need that bottom up planning. What you just said about your son. Like, you're not coming in to tell him you should deconstruct the Lego and redo it. Like, you're actually empowering them or empowering the workforce to come up with their ideas and let it bubble up, but then having that sort of that strategic lens or leadership lens to say, yeah, actually, there's some common threads, there's some common focuses. And with that organization that I was working with, it actually led to us coming up with 5 big areas of focus, whether it was on technology and innovation, whether it was on the customer, on the people, on the revenue growth. And it actually then, yeah, like kind of bubbled up those 5 key strategic themes that we could focus on as an organization. But it meant that anything that didn't really fit into those things, you could argue whether we need to deprioritize them or not. And I think that leads really nicely into identifying those themes or recurring objectives that are appearing across plans. I think a lot of the time, most people are aligned to your vision and aligned to what you want to achieve as an organization, but they're approaching it in very different ways. So whether it's from the customer experience team approaching it with a customer lens, whether it's the manufacturing and operations team coming at it from an efficiency point of view, yeah, that's kind of that starting point, if you like, to serve as what could be known as strategic themes, focus areas, overarching pillars. Yeah, so that more strategic lens, if you like. Do you have any thoughts or comments on where you've seen that work quite effectively?
Yeah, I mean, I would say as well, it's not a bad thing if you're in the position of having a number of different plans right now and you feel like, oh, this is all just not fitting together. I think it can actually, I think it can actually be a great platform to get started. And again, like seeing it all in a way, like what do the teams come up and crowdsource those ideas to maybe come up with an opportunity that you might not even have considered. Would you have cascaded it down in a more traditional way? And I think that's something to consider. It's like there is no good or bad wherever you stand with your strategy. It's more about what are you making out of it in many ways as well, and how are you looking at it to see potential opportunities that can then be aligned strategically and then properly being resourced, and the focus can be created after that as well with, I don't know, whatever you already said as well, like overarching pillars, and then you potentially come up with bigger buzzwords that help to drive the organization and create that story and culture behind all of that. But that can be the second step. I think again, like it's important to recognize that sometimes those plans can be very valuable. And it's not always like top down. It can also just like be that bottom up approach to understand what other opportunities there are in the organization. And even when you unify plans under your bigger umbrella and you start maybe with a little bit more of the traditional approach, I think it's important to keep that culture as well open and that kind of like two-way street, to also have teams come up with their own ideas and suggestions of how they would like to maybe further innovate and how they would solve a problem. So I think it's again, like it's this two-way street that you have to keep in mind. It's the constructing and deconstructing of the Lego pieces and almost like all the time, because that's how you find maybe new ways how to construct it or put it together, or new opportunities might open up.
Yeah. And I think like thinking about that real world application or success stories, I think when Satya Nadella took over as CEO of Microsoft, he found that teams were working on really exciting projects. Obviously, they were really aligned to where the business was heading, but it wasn't a very unified strategy. And so by reverse engineering what was already happening in the moment, those existing efforts, he was able to then identify those key themes like cloud computing as being one of the overarching themes that they want to get to, or being mobile first, they actually became those central pillars of how Microsoft had that turnaround strategy. I'm sure there were other pieces that he brought into the fold, like what are competitors doing? Where is the technology landscape heading? Of course, those things can influence as well. And it's really important to get that wide-ranging view, doing a SWOT analysis, doing competitive analysis, to then also reinforce whether you're heading in the right direction, whether you're being innovative enough. But I think, you don't have to scrap what everybody's doing. You don't have to put a pause on what everybody's working on. You just need to sort of calibrate all of the time, including calibrating if your vision still makes sense, calibrating whether your strategies still fit in with that vision, calibrating whether the business units and the team or the function plans, depending on how your business operates, how they actually align with that high level corporate strategy, and making sure that you have at least some skeleton framework in place for how you want to operate as a business at that corporate level. It can really help anchor everybody around that unified vision.
Yeah, and I really like this example, Laura. And I think like Nike and similar to Adidas, they did a very similar thing when they were working through separate plans. Like they saw, okay, the sales team, the retail stores, they're all like working on something, but they saw that and they recognized the pattern that everybody was putting more of a focus on D2C specifically. And that's where they started seeing the common thread of developing a more focused digital strategy. And that kind of created like Nike Digital at the end of the day. So it's a powerful direction that not necessarily came from the top, similar to Microsoft, but that really relied on the teams in many ways, and seeing and giving them the space to also see what the next direction likely should be. So it's powerful to always keep an eye out for these things, even if you might have a super aligned top-down strategy. I think again there is power in always sourcing the bottom-up ideas as well, and who knows where they might lead to eventually as well. But yeah, Laura, don't you help us think a little bit more about how can we be very practical about all of this if somebody out there is thinking, oh my God, I have all these plans. What am I going to do? Where am I going to start?
Yes, I think I would definitely recommend the first step being a strategy alignment workshop, or at least a session with your leaders across the organization to really map out what existing plans are in place and really encourage everybody to come with an open mind, and also, have the objective or the outcome at the end of the session to be more aligned as an organization and make sure that we're all moving in the right direction. So that would be my first step, or my first point of call. I think from there, it would then naturally help you to establish those strategic themes that are resonating. And it's really interesting. I have an organization I'm working with at the moment, and there's one direction they could go, which is these are our themes or our focus areas. Run with it. But they actually decided to take the other approach, which is actually my recommendation and my favorite approach, which is these are what we think our themes are going to be. What's your feedback? Do you resonate with them? Can you think of ways in which you can play a part in working on objectives or projects that really align with these strategic themes? What are we missing? Help us understand as a leadership team if we're not thinking about something. And I really love that approach, because you immediately have the inclusivity and the opinions of your leaders, but you're not having too many cooks in the kitchen by asking them to come up with the strategic themes. You're giving them a bit of a stepping stone. And I think that, for me, is the best way to approach it. Do you agree with that? And what else would you say, or what would you do after that?
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think it's very powerful to have the right people in the room and allow for more creativity, and also just to further evolve maybe some of those first kind of strategic themes and make them stronger, sharper by having those open conversations. I think that can always just make it better. Maybe it takes a little bit longer sometimes in the process, but it will definitely be more sustainable. And again, it's the same like when I'm letting my child deconstruct the Lego pieces. It would obviously be a lot faster if I would just show him how to do it and how to put it together. but he would not learn it and he would not come up with all of these great other ideas, how he could creatively put these all these elements together. So I think it's always like allowing some of that room as well. But then, of course, eventually coming together and create also for the wider organization, because you don't expect everybody to think about the strategy all the time. So for the wider organization, eventually there needs to be a plan or a guide or something that will help in terms of a strategic playbook, how to operate, how to help them as well understand what their role is and how they can contribute to those strategic priorities that have been set. And then, of course, on a consistent basis, review it and analyze it and go back and have those pauses to understand if that's still if that's still ringing true. But yeah, of course, at one point there needs to be the umbrella needs to be broken down. It needs to be put in a playbook or whatever you want to call it to help execute the strategy in a meaningful and effective way as well.
But you
And
could also use a platform where the strategies are always visible, like Cascade.
exactly. Yeah, I guess like in the end, it's like really like sometimes the best way to move forward is by starting from where you are and see what you already have, and then working backwards to reveal the bigger picture and understand what else might be there that comes up and that could maybe nourish and that strategy. And who knows where it takes you.
Awesome. I love that. Well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed this conversation. I think reverse engineering your strategy is really important. I know we live by at Cascade the idea that planning is always should be agile. Your plan is not set in stone. It's not an annual process. It's very much a living and breathing document. So being able to reverse engineer that at whenever the time is right for your business, I think is really important. So hopefully you found it insightful. Hopefully you can go and navigate the next stage in your strategic planning, and that it helps you on your journey to better strategy execution.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed that conversation as well. And make sure to tune in next week when we'll be talking about another exciting topic. And of course, it's going to be a great episode filled with lots of practical tips. So you don't want to miss that.
And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the Ultimate Strategy Podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. They come out weekly, usually drop on a Thursday. And we've always got lots of exciting topics planned. So check out our website as well if you want a tool to help you with better strategy execution. And a huge thank you, as always, to our sponsor, Cascade, for making this podcast possible.
So thank you for listening. And remember, great strategies are only as good as their execution.
So take action, make it happen, and see the results. See you in the next episode of your weekly dose of strategy.